Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Feel the Flourish podcast. It's just Luke and I today, and we're so happy to be here with you. We recently had a beach vacation in Phuket, Thailand. It was wonderful. And Luke was looking quite red, so he changed the lighting behind him. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you can't really tell right now, but
I'm not
he's
red
still
anymore.
at red.
I'm
You
not red.
are, you're still pink.
I don't think that's true. But the
It
lighting
was just the
definitely,
light.
the lighting definitely made me look red.
Okay.
But I think
He got a little burnt.
I
We all
did.
got burnt, but you were the reddest, I think.
Oh, definitely. But I've tanned up. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Go
So
body.
our topic talking today is about nervous system regulation and the states of the nervous system and the primary states and the mixed states, introducing the mixed states. And on that trip, I think we hit them all. We
did.
we were exercising that tone, the vagus tone, and introducing some experiences of threat and safety, and practicing finding safety in threat. But overall, it was a good break. It's a nice trip.
It really
was beautiful.
was.
We got to celebrate 17 years of marriage on the beach. That was nice.
That was, we definitely experienced some states there that we can share when we get into those, because that was an amazing experience. So incredibly soothing to the nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sunset was beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And the waves, the rhythmic waves, watching them at sunset. I don't know if I've ever done that before. It was so, or at least been like engaged and like tuned into it, you know?
Right.
Ooh.
So we've talked about the nervous system states in the past. Season 2, episode 19 is when we kind of introduced those states. And so if you haven't listened to that one yet, we encourage you to go back and listen to that one, because we're going to highlight the primary states, but we're going to really more introduce and focus on the mixed states today. So if you're not familiar with the primary states, season 2, episode 19 is one you'll want to check out. So just real quick, I'll just remind you of those states, the primary states. If you're watching the video, Lauren
just the colors, I think.
Lauren's holding up a picture. So safe and social is kind of the top of the vagus nerve. Then there's sympathetic, which you experience more in the abdomen, chest area, and dorsal or shutdown is where the vagus nerve controls more of the stomach area. And so safe and social is the primary connection state. And so in that state, you are pursuing connection, you are open to connection and your relationship, you're feeling safe, you're open to adventure and dreams and opportunities and connection. And your body's just really feeling safe and relaxed and at peace. Sympathetic is that fight-flight response state where you feel more of a threat. And again, this can be, a lot of people miss this because they're like, well, no one's threatening me. I don't feel like threatened. So I think I feel safe. And here is where it's a perceived threat, whether it's relational or physical. Our body's going to go into that release that sympathetic energy to prepare you to fight somebody off physically, or even argue with them and to push them off relationally to keep you safe relationally, or run away. So maybe avoid, leave the room, or if something's chasing you, there's a fire, you get out. That's that sympathetic state. And
the other addition, sorry, just want to throw in the fawn response is the most new element of fight, flight, or freeze is like fawn. And fawning is basically an appeasement. So it looks very, if you look at someone fawning, you would never imagine they're in a state of survival,
Yeah.
right? They look like this first state that Luke just described, safe and social. They look peaceful, hopeful, open, adventurous, problem solving in a, balanced way. They could look all of those things. But what's happening is their nervous system is sensing some level of threat. And so they're appeasing the people that they're with to avoid further threat, to avoid further trouble. So fawn is a really common one.
Yeah, it's that unhealthy people pleasing. You're going above and beyond to help to do, well, not doing it out of safety and security and connection, but more out of, if I don't do this, I'm gonna lose connection, I'm gonna lose relationship. And so I have to do this in order to be safe, to make the people around me happy so I can feel accepted.
Yeah.
And then the final primary state is shutdown. And in this state, it's kind of where our nervous system just kind of bottoms out. It's neurocepting cues of danger, so it's not feeling safe, so it can't go to safe and social. And a lot of times it's like neurocepting the environment and saying, we can't get away or you can't fight this situation. So to avoid the pain of what this experience is going to be, we're going to just shut your nervous system down, and we're going to disengage, dissociate, disconnect. And in this state, you feel a lot more, you feel like that depression, the hopelessness, life is pointless, the situation is pointless, just feeling very fatalistic in this state. And in sympathetic, just real quick, that's more of where we experience anxiety. So if you're feeling anxiety, that's a cue of you're probably in that sympathetic state. And then, yeah, shutdown is just that this is the best option based on our previous experiences. Based on previous experiences that are similar to this, maybe try to fight or try to run away, it hasn't worked out. Maybe try to fawn, it doesn't work out, and connection is dangerous. So let's just shut down so you don't get hurt any more than you're already going to. And it's just a survival state of protecting yourself from experiencing any more pain. And again, that could look from a physical stance, but also from a relational of where there's a disagreement, an argument, or insecurity is triggered and you just feel like I'm not listened to, I won't be understood, I'm just going to shut down, and your brain is fuzzy and foggy and your body feels heavy, and you're just it's not taking, your nervous system isn't looking for action, it's looking for protection.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes shutdown is considered the state of immobilization, whereas sympathetic is the state of mobilization, because that shutdown just like kind of automatically just turns you off. Like if you just think of a robot like shutting down, that's what our bodies do. And just a reminder too, I think I had said this in the regulation episode, was just, this is all automated. So this is involuntary. And it's not like you're thinking cognitively, oh, I'm not going to be heard. Your body is reliving that experience and saying your body is taking that action to keep you protected from more harm. And I just wanted to add, like, I think we mentioned in the other episode how these states can look very functional too. So shutdown and sympathetic can look, I mean, if you think of the most extreme form of sympathetic, it'd be a panic attack. Okay. So that's one end of the continuum of sympathetic, but then the other end could be a very well-spoken, successful,
Could be a workaholic,
productive, efficient, yes, doing very good things, looking very good doing them, very, very productive. And it doesn't look like anxiety. And a lot of people don't know. I think I shared in the other episode that I was in sympathetic for decades and never knew. And this is something we see a lot with our clients is they don't recognize that they're dysregulated because it's all they've ever known. And for them, it just looks like helping people or doing things or having projects or always needing to go somewhere and do something. But this internal engine in their body is always revved up towards some end. Even if it's a good end, it's still sympathetic energy and it still taxes the over time.
Yeah.
And then shutdown can be also a continuum. It can be in bed, burnout, depressed, catatonic, or it can be a person that gets up every day, takes care of their kids, goes to work, does things, but internally
disembodied.
They're numb and disembodied. Yeah. And that's also something that's really common we see with clients. So
yeah, and there's a lot more to say about that.
Yeah, there really is.
But season 2, episode 19 goes in a lot more depth to that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a listen if you're not really familiar with polyvagal. Definitely check it out.
And so today we want to introduce the mixed states. So we want to kind of talk a little bit about that.
I do.
Good.
So
It's almost like we planned that.
It's almost like we planned that. We're so organized. So if you're watching the YouTube video, we put all the podcasts up on YouTube so you can watch them. Some people prefer that. Blended states is another name for mixed states. We call them mixed states, but essentially it is two states being felt at the same time. And this is showing two of the mixed states. So we're going to talk about the 3 mixed states today. The first one we'll talk about is a safe and social. You're in safe and social, but there's a little splash of sympathetic, and that state is called play. And this state is a state of connection as well. So this is not a survival state. This is a state of connection, and this state is really common. This pathway is really commonly worn or explored first in childhood, where kids learn to have wonder. I mean, they don't learn, it's just natural, it's intrinsic to have wonder and delight and fun with everything they do, everything they touch. We can still see this so strongly in our youngest, who's 11. Everything is literally a game. Everything is play. Everything is delight. Even if it's brushing his teeth or this most mundane task that we're just all so sick of, or just, don't even think about doing because that's life. He will make it a playful thing because he's just always in this state of play. And sometimes that makes it really difficult because that's not always how life works, right? Sometimes you need to work and focus. But his playfulness is beautiful and it's natural. And in childhood, hopefully that neural pathway, that track of the nervous system was developed. But it goes on to service in adulthood as well, unless we've experienced a lot of chronic stress and trauma. Chronic stress and trauma, what we found is when people really disconnect from that play state and they can't get into it. So everything is serious, is important, is urgent, or in sympathetic is just lifeless and doesn't matter. But play allows us.
Shut down.
Sorry, what did I say?
Sympathetic.
Sorry, shut down. Thank you.
Yep.
Play allows us to still be anchored in safety, but to have some of the energy of sympathetic fuel our state. And that can be really, really wonderful. It can bring us greater connection and adventure, can bring us curiosity and creativity. A lot of creativity is through the play state. Can give us great ideas, can help us connect with people in ways that we might not otherwise connect with them. Play state is also where physical intimacy is often experienced in safe and social with a splash of sympathetic. And when we did our map of what episode was that? That was recent, right?
Yeah.
Map of sexual responsiveness we talked about how there's different, sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but there's different states that you need your nervous system to shift into to be able to experience arousal and responsiveness sexually. And so play comes into that, and it allows you to have anchored safety, but also the sympathetic drive to connect physically. So play is a really neat state. Again, it's not a state of protection, it is a state of connection. What we'll see sometimes in children in particular is because their vagal tone hasn't been strengthened enough because they're young, they get into a play state and everyone's happy. And then you start noticing everyone's starting to cry and yell at each other, and it's devolved so quickly. And that's because of that sympathetic energy that's there. Sometimes it can shift you depending on, what's happening. And if you have strong vagal tone, it can shift you into fully sympathetic. This could also be seen with adults. Everyone's having healthy competition in a game, everyone's having fun, and then you see two guys like punching each other at the side, and you're just like, how did that happen? But that's because of the connection to sympathetic.
Yeah. And it's not just if there's trauma as we grow up that we get out of that play state, but it's also sometimes our culture teaches us that play is no longer okay for adults. We talked our last episode about restricted masculinity. He kind of even talked about how boys learn to not share emotions. And so that's a little bit different, but the idea of having to grow up, hold it together, be mature, be responsible. Specifically, men are taught that play is childish. Play is being irresponsible. You need to man up, grow up, be mature, be responsible. But really, that's actually counterproductive to healthy relationship and connection.
Right.
Because you're not allowing your body to experience that play, which helps your nervous system experience safety, connection, relationship, and like you were saying, helping tone your nervous system. Like when you have a toned nervous system, but helps you stay in that play and not go to that dysregulated sympathetic. So the importance of being able to continue that play is it continues to tone your vagus nerve. And when in childhood, what we see is that children are vagus nerve is not toned, and so the sympathetic energy gets too much and it becomes dysregulated. As you tone your nervous, the vagus nerve, the vagal brake is what stops the sympathetic energy from becoming too much. They can allows just enough sympathetic energy in to be active, excited, creative, have fun, interact, but it stops it from becoming too much and becoming, and your nervous system becoming overwhelmed, threatened, dysregulated. So play is very important, and it's also why we talk about nervous system regulation, because you want to tone your nervous system so that you can enjoy play and it doesn't lead to dysregulation as easily.
Which reminds me of just the reminder we like to give people when they learn about these states. Humans are so binary. We think, oh, okay, safe and social is the good state. Sympathetic and dorsal are the bad states. And that's just how we are as people. So it's normal to think that way. But then to actually bring in a more scientific understanding of it is all of these states are absolutely crucial to our survival and to our thriving.
Yes.
And they all work together in symphony. And the goal isn't to stay in safe and social. The goal is to, like Luke's talking about, have a more toned vagus nerve that can allow us to go in and out of these states, up and down the polyvagal ladder with ease. Not that it feels great to feel a sympathetic surge of fear or panic or terror or to feel the hopeless shutdown state. But that those states we can find safety, we can return back to safe and social more easily because we have that more toned vagus nerve. And so that's the goal of regulation, is to help strengthen that capacity so that our window of tolerance, another term, is much wider and that we can tolerate a lot more. And then when we do get pushed into a survival state, which absolutely should happen because this world is full of situations that we need to protect, we need to go from a state of connection to a state of protection to protect ourselves or our people. But then because we have that regulated nervous system, we're able to go back to safety more quickly with less collateral damage and with less effort even. So.
And not only are there situations where we do need to go in those states, but there's also why it's important to do our work is because we have story, and the story is what tells us when there is a perceived threat and what a perceived threat looks like. And so we have to go in that state. And so we're going to go through life with legitimate threats, but also being triggered by perceived threats. And our nervous system needs to know when to go there, but also when it's safe to come out. And that it is safe to come out. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but by doing that work, it becomes autonomic nervous system becomes activated and becomes automatic and more frequently, and it becomes more natural. And that's the signs of a toned vagus nerve.
Yeah. Which will allow you to experience the second mixed state that we're going to talk about, which is a state of stillness. And so that's when, is that this one right here? That's when you have, you're anchored in safe and social, and when it has a splash of dorsal energy, okay, which is shutdown. These terms are interchangeable. Dorsal means shutdown and ventral means safe and social. We just use all the S words because it makes it really easy to remember, and they're simple words. They're self-descriptive, like safe and social tells you what it is. Sympathetic doesn't quite tell you, but you learn it, and then shutdown does. So anyways, it's the top of the ladder that you're anchored in, and then you have a splash of that shutdown energy, which again, because of a toned vagus nerve, you don't bottom out into that shutdown place. You just have a splash of it, which allows you a really, really sweet, connected, very calm, almost, I want to say this word carefully, but almost like a drug-like state. So if you think of like a massage you've gotten, or some other body work, and you realized you weren't asleep, but you realized that your body has just tapped into this very restful, restorative place. This is the state of stillness. And this is a mixed state. And it is probably unlikely to be experienced if you have a very dysregulated nervous system. So if you don't know what we're referring to, also normal. But as you begin to recover and find a deeper regulation, you can find times where you feel this state, where you feel the energy of the state. So some other ways that you might feel it is connecting with an infant, with a baby, and that baby's on your chest, and you feel your heart rate just slow as you're rocking this baby, and the baby's asleep, and the warmth of that shared experience is just feeling so connected and so calming to your nervous system. That's also the state of stillness. Or holding a loved one or a partner in bed or on the couch, and you're not even talking, you're just feeling the experience of two bodies connecting on that level beyond words. That's also a state of stillness. Sometimes nature, people can find this state through nature, through music. It can be found. It is a very, again, you're anchored in safety, but you have that splash of even deeper relaxation from that splash of shutdown. Yeah. Can you think of other times that you might experience this?
I mean, there's like meditation, yoga.
Yes.
Are two big things where people feel that state of stillness.
Yeah, maybe Qigong,
Yeah,
another practice.
and yeah, so it's just it's a restorative place where you're feel that safety, but there's just a relaxation, so your nervous system is able to be restored, be healed, be rejuvenated, and it's not a shutdown panic. I'm
Right.
afraid it's, that is amazing, that's beautiful, this is comforting, this is um, relaxing, this is regulating,
Yeah,
all of that,
yeah,
whatever it is for that. Different people experience that in different
right.
activities.
I think, I'm not sure if this is true. I'm kind of going off my own insight here, but if you're having trouble connecting with what this might feel like, I think right before you fall asleep, I think it's a similar feeling if it's a restful, if it's not like I'm so exhausted, my life's falling apart, everything sucks, sleep. But if it's just you feel good and you're just kind of floating away to sleep, but you're still cognizant, that feeling, I think if you're unfamiliar with other things we've talked about,
Mhm.
I think that feeling could help connect you with, oh, okay, maybe that's similar to the state of stillness.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the two states of connection that are mixed states. So meaning they're not survival states, they're not adaptations, they're actually safety states where the body feels safe. And then there's one blended state that is a state of protection. So this is when the nervous system does not feel safe. That would be in that state. And that this is a blend of the two survival states. So you think of the sympathetic state right in the middle and that bottom part of the ladder, shutdown. When those two blend together, this is what's called the state of freeze. Now, this is all over social media content and articles in a confusing way. And so we would love to clarify it, because initially when we started into polyvagal, I was like, why am I hearing freeze used for shutdown? Because it's something different.
Mhm.
And so, everyone has different ways of explaining, but for how we want to educate, we'll make it, we'll kind of show you what we've learned from the polyvagal experts is shutdown and freeze are two distinct states. Freeze is a blend of sympathetic, so you're revved up, and you're shut down. It's both the gas and the brake at the same time. It's a very uncomfortable, unpleasant, scary place to be. And I'm pretty sure most everyone has felt this state before. This is when you cannot run, you cannot fawn, but you have so much terror and sympathetic energy within you, and your body shuts down. So you're not yet in shutdown where your eyes glaze over and you just feel numb. You still feel all the fire and the angst of sympathetic, but there is nothing that you feel you can do. That is freeze.
Yeah, that's a scary one to feel. Like you said, you're aware of the threat, you feel the threat, but you feel powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is helpful, but like I picture as you were describing that, it was like a car, like a car peeling out. Like some people like that, but like it's the idea of like there's chaos. It's like the car's supposed to be moving, but it can't. And so there's all that
Wow.
energy of the tires spinning and trying to go somewhere, but with that dorsal brake saying you can't move.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you feel the energy of needing to move, but you can't do anything about it. So your body is very wrapped up and you're stuck.
That is so good and so crazy how different people experience similar things in these states, because we're more alike than different. So I don't know if you remember, gosh, it's been several months, but one of our posts was a video I did where I was talking about the experience of freeze, feeling very similar to what you just said. I was driving, and this is what gave me the symbolism of it. I was driving in a fast lane and cars were going, and the car started to just stop. Like it started to just shut down. this is for real. I was able to quickly, I don't even remember what the problem was, but I was able to keep going. But that moment of it shutting down in the middle of complete movement and it just stopping, just totally bottomed out my stomach and just brought tear. Because I was like, obviously you would get hit if you just stop in the middle of a fast lane. And it was just this instant picture of, oh my goodness, this is what freeze feels like. You should be moving. Everything in you says you got to move. This isn't safe, but your body cannot. That shutdown will not allow you to. And this happens a lot with assault, with sexual assault, with power dynamics of, even if it's not physical assault, but when you are in organizations, workplaces, institutions, where there are power dynamics that are clear and established, your body will often experience freeze when you do not feel safe, because there's nothing that you feel you can do.
When that power is being used abusively and mishandled, it doesn't feel safe, but who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to address?
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You have no power to question the system. So it pulls you, the state of freeze pulls you in two different directions. And I think that's what leads to it feeling so incredibly uncomfortable in the body.
Yeah.
So maybe everyone should take a little deep breath if that's kind of touching any experiences or feelings that you've had that time, that state.
Yeah, I can definitely feel it. So I think that's a good invitation to just take a deep breath, let it out, check back in, ground yourself. Like our bodies, when we think about those, our bodies sometimes remember and relive them. And so one way of helping tone your nervous system is when that happens, you're tuning to it and saying, like, bringing safety back of, I'm not in, that did happen, but I'm not in that situation now. And helping your brain and body come back to the present, and experience safety. As there's this times where I can remember, like, the kids, like, we were learning how to ride the bike, and like they're 10 yards away from me, and like I want to go run and catch them as they're falling, and it's like I can't move fast enough. So there's little things like that of freezing, of like panic, of like I need to go catch them, but I can't. And there's not necessarily fear, but there's like a stalling.
Fear.
There's that internally, there's that combination of urgency, panic, and but I can't move. And so it could be as little things, like as not little, but less significant things of that.
I understand what you're saying. It's kind of more advanced polyvagal to learn about the mixed states, but if you've listened to this, you must be curious if you've gotten this far. So it can be really helpful to know beyond the primary states, to experience, to just have language and a framework for the different states you're in. And hopefully as you regulate more, you'll experience more of those connected mixed states. So the play and stillness, those are really, really rich, restorative, enjoyable states. And as you build more regulation capacity, you'll have more access to them. So like for us relationally, we can enjoy them together sometimes. So it's rainy season now in Thailand, which means it rains pretty much every day. And last night, Luke and I went out on our balcony off of our bedroom and just sat in the quiet and in the dark and just watched and listened to the rain. And that's something we do often. And it's so amazing. A, that's regulating in and of itself. But B, when you pursue more regulation, it has a cyclical effect. So you pursue it, and maybe it doesn't feel super calming at first because your mind's racing. But the more you pursue, we call it, this is the pillar of beauty. The more you pursue beauty and lean into life, life has a way, beauty has a way of regulating you. And so being out there in the dark and being able to enjoy that together or alone is so soothing to the nervous system, and is a way to become more embodied, and your body will become more regulated so that you can do those things and they actually feel enjoyable. Because a lot of folks are just like, well, yeah, I look at the sunset, or I try to color, or I try to do an old hobby, but it just doesn't feel good anymore. And that's totally normal.
Yep. Yep. And I think that's one, I think these mixed states is an area where I feel like I've seen most growth in me. Like,
Yes.
of like, I just, looking back, play was not accessible for me for so long. Because a teenager, I was goofy and silly and playful and sarcastic.
Such a flirt.
I might have been a little bit of a flirt. But as moving into adulthood, looking back, like, play was very hard for me to access.
Yeah.
And just in the last couple of years, just seeing that come back to me has been really nice, as I've been able to engage with play with you, but with the kids. And it's just, which has also led to more ability for stillness, to sit outside and listen to the rain, or acknowledge beauty on our walks. So I know sometimes we practice, you're great at inviting me to practice like stillness as we're walking. It's like, let's not talk for a few minutes, but notice the beauty around us. And that's always nice. And neither one of us, I think, have defaulted to that, but we've had to be very intentional.
Yes.
And like you said, it's been a cyclical thing of the more we do that, the more we enjoy it, the more we want to, and the more it's natural. Like, I don't have to muster up play and fun as much anymore. It's like my body's just in that state, and able to engage with our kids and you in a more playful way, and which brings a lot of joy for me to be able to do that and see that shift.
Totally. And everyone else.
Right.
It's like our kids are actually getting to know the more real us now in our mid to late 30s. They're meeting us almost for the first time in some ways.
Yeah.
And there's grief in that. We didn't have access to play or to safe and social much when they were littles. And this contributed to their dysregulation, and now their story and what they're going to have to do to continue to find their way back to themselves and to a more regulated place. But it also brings a lot of joy, because it's amazing to be able to be more our true selves with our people. What a gift it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is more co-regulating for them too, as they see us, and which is neuroception, and so it's obvious.
Totally.
But I've also seen that with our kids. So, and seeing them being able to access that play more and stillness. Some of them stillness is still harder, but play is more accessible.
Well, there's also neurodiversity, lots of neurodivergence in our house, so
that's true.
That makes it just different, just tricky. But I love to see our youngest. He loves to point out beauty, and the other day he like called me in his room. He's like, "Mom, you've got to see this. I've got flowers in here." I'm like, what is he talking about? But knowing him, he could have went outside and picked flowers and put them in his room. Like, there's no telling. So I was like, I went into his room, and he had opened up his curtain and was pointing to in Thailand, everyone needs to know this. There are flowering trees, people, everywhere, not just like once a year for a week. There are flowering trees everywhere all the time. It is absolutely like top 5 most beloved things about this country for me.
In every color you can imagine.
Every color. Oh, so stunning. So he's like pointing out the window to these flowering trees that are right outside his second story window, and is just like enraptured by them. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. It's so precious that our kids, like, they notice the sky now, they notice art more, like music, they can really point out songs they love, and stories that are really powerful. Even as simple as like our oldest son sending us YouTube videos and saying like, this story like moved me so much, and he comes out and he's almost in tears, and we're just like, oh my goodness, it's so rewarding to come back into a more regulated state, personally, and then interpersonally. It hasn't been easy though.
Yeah. He also sends us videos of funny videos where it's cool to see him engaging in that play aspect of inviting us into his sense of humor and his personality as well.
That's a really good point that I'll just throw in there. Go with what you already are drawn to. Don't feel like you have to like reinvent yourself or recreate yourself. If you love comedy, that's beauty. There is so much goodness and good dose chemistry for the brain. Dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, these positive feel-good chemicals from laughter and from witty jokes and clever stories. That's amazing. So if that's something you already love or used to love, go that direction. We always encourage people to kind of remember who they were and who they are and what they love. And it's amazing that even like when we have clients say, I've just been doing it for just a few weeks, and I'm like already back to loving it. And it's so enriching, and it makes me happy, and it gives me purpose, and it gives me something to look forward to. And like, wow, the nervous system really wants to respond. It does take time, but also it's ready to feel those connected states of play, stillness, and safe and social.
Absolutely.
Your body is made for it, and it wants to experience those. So partnering with your nervous system will allow you the pathway to be able to continue increasing your regulation capacity, and therefore enjoying your life in such a meaningful way.
Love that.
All right, well, again, check out episode 19 of season 2 if you haven't yet. And thank you so much for your support and listening and sharing episodes that you feel like maybe an encouragement to other people. It means the world to us. Find us on social. Yes, keep sharing. Flourish_therapy on Instagram and Facebook. We share content twice a day for your growth and healing. So we'll see you next time on the Feel to Flourish podcast.